All right, welcome back to the OG Rivals podcast. I am your Packer fan host here with my festive hat on. I had to do something to show that the future is bright for Green Bay right now. I don't care what anybody else has to say, and I am joined here to arm wrestle about future brightness with the Bears fan, Sir Miguel Prado. How you doing,
Hey,
sir?
good evening, sir. We are back. Took a bit of a sabbatical, but here on Packers Week, Rivalry Week, this is what this podcast is all about. It's what we set out to do. I think there's
Yes,
tons
sir.
of great content that we can revisit from our preseason training camp and even earlier in the years, earlier this season, I should say. Some of those storylines I think are front and center. But just happy to be back and grateful for this opportunity to hop back on here with you, sir.
Heck yeah, man. Same here. Glad to be back in the seat. We had to take a little week off for Thanksgiving last week. That was the right thing to do, I think. Let the emotions cool so I didn't overreact too much to a Cowboys win and then, subsequent Titans
Yeah.
loss. But yeah, definitely a lot to get into, man. We got a future quarterback to talk about here. Quarterback controversy,
No, I
maybe.
don't think it's quite a
Um,
controversy. I think if anything, well, I mean, before we get into it, let's let the people know who we're being brought to you by tonight.
Of course, of course, of course. Yes. And we want y'all to feel better today because that is what we are passionate about at Life Leaf Remedies. We are working on creating superior natural remedies for y'all by combining effective cannabinoids like CBD, CBDA, CBG, CBN, and a lot more. With natural vitamins, minerals, even fungi. A lot of really cool things coming out of the mushroom community these days. We're here to create products that help you take better care of yourself and better care of your family. If natural remedies is something that you are passionate about, check us out at lifeleafremedies.com today. Subscribe, save yourself 10%, get free shipping. If you just want to take advantage of the free shipping and cancel your subscription right afterwards, go for it. Don't care. We just want you to come check out the product, come check out the website, and ultimately we want y'all to feel better today. And I'll tell you what, man. There's another thing that we can or they can do to help us feel better today. What is
Yeah,
that,
if
sir?
you're in that mood to help us feel better today, and you enjoy our back and forth, I think tonight's going to be a good one for you as far as the rivalry itself. Please don't forget to spike that like button, leave us a comment, subscribe, and talk about us at your next tailgate. And these tailgates are going to be pretty cold at Soldier Field this weekend.
It's a classic NFC North matchup,
Yeah,
man.
if you got your
I'm
light up beanie,
excited.
make sure you take it to the South Lot there at Soldier Field. And it's
Make sure everybody
yeah,
sees
it's
me.
heating up though. Something's heating up. So not everything's cold. So you mentioned it. Let's just kind of level set. Get out of the gate here. Quarterback
Dive in the deep end.
controversy. Tell me about that.
Yes, sir. Hey, let me lead off the way that we should, right? All respect due to Rodgers for what he did. He is one of the greatest throwers of the football in the game. That's not going to change. But football is a game of business, man. And it comes down to business, and you're starting to see something. I think we're seeing something unfold that has been in the process of unfolding all season long, which is Aaron Rodgers knows that Jordan Love is good. How good remains to be seen. I think he knows he's good. That's why he's not coming out with a thumb. That's why he's not wanting to come out and he wants to start again this week. He knows that if he turns the reins over to Jordan Love for any extended period of time, they've got a real decision to make on their hands that he does not want them to make because Aaron Rodgers doesn't have the leverage anymore. Since he signed that contract, the leverage is all in the Packers. Now, there's obviously some dead cap situations that everybody's starting to get into on Twitter. Gotta love the Packers Twitter crowd. You guys always investigate things very thoroughly. But ultimately, I think there are some business decisions that will be made this offseason about the quarterback position in Green Bay. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I I heard you say the thumb, so it's no secret, right? Aaron Rodgers, tough as nails, what he's been able to do, you know, with with the body that he has breaking down along the way, it's not an easy position to play. I mean, we see it week in and week out. But he was
Right.
also holding his ribs, wasn't he? There
Yep.
in this most recent week, in that game, he was holding his ribs before getting not pulled. Right, it was more of just getting evaluated. Did he go back to the locker room?
It sounded like he pulled himself. So basically, he said and this was on McAfee. He thought he had a punctured lung, so he had to get that checked out because he like couldn't move. He felt like he couldn't move and like rotate and stuff. So yeah, he had to go get that checked out. It was not a punctured lung. He didn't get into the specifics of what it was, or I missed that. But ultimately, it looks like he's cleared to play this week. So, I think we talked about it a little bit before. It'd be really hard to imagine Aaron Rodgers not starting against the Bears at Soldier Field, as long as he's capable of doing that. Again, the owner of the Bears has to come and collect rent. Let's be real here. But ultimately, I think he knows what's on the table, man. He's seen this happen to so many other quarterbacks around the league. That the older guy goes down with an injury, the younger guy steps in and takes care of business, and the team has to make a business decision. That's how it goes. It looks like Jordan Love is starting to sling the rock. I mean, the first thing that I thought when I was watching him was the ball was jumping out of his hand, and he was throwing a tight spiral. Beautiful ball. Placement looked good. Even on some of the incompletions, it looked like the ball was where it needed it to. They needed it to be. So ultimately, very, very excited about what we saw out of Jordan Love in limited snaps. And I'll say, I think he ties the game if he gets another series. Unfortunately, the defense is not good enough to give that to him. Oh, well. Very excited about what we saw. I don't even care that we lost that game at this point. It was watching Jordan Love connect with Christian Watson on a 63-yard catch and run for a touchdown was like all the satisfaction I needed. It was beautiful. A beautiful glimpse into what I think is a bright future, which is why I have my flashy hat.
The hat it speaks for itself. It's pretty bright. I do want to apologize to the listener or listeners at home if you do hear a screaming baby back there. That is my son being sleep trained. So I promise you he's okay. I can hear him loud and clear on my end.
He's okay.
But I just Miles, if you do have that editing touch and you can hear him, just do me a favor and help me out there. But just wanted to apologize
down a little bit
to the listeners at home. I will say this with Jordan Love, I am happy for you, Miles. I'm not going to be a bitter Bears fan here. I'm happy for you, and here's why. Right? I was watching that game, and the moment I saw, I think it was a back shoulder throw that he made to the sideline, and it was dropped. And it was
that's right. That was one of those placements.
Yeah, one of those
incomplete.
Let's just call it an NFL throw, right? It was an NFL throw, placed exactly where it needed to be, give his guy a shot. And when it was dropped, I was like, Miles is going to be giddy about that throw. And you know why? Because I've been singing this tune.
Oh yeah,
all year, right? Where it's like, with Justin Fields and he puts the ball on the money, and there's a lot of critique out there about, the Bears got a good running back and all this with Justin Fields, but when you watch, the entire game, you watch those reps there live. I knew that I had a bit of a smile on my face. I knew you would be excited about that. Obviously, the 63-yard touchdown. I'd say it's not a controversy on my end because if Rodgers is healthy, he's got to go, right? And healthy with quotations around it because how healthy could you be week 13 in the NFL? Everybody's dinged up, but yeah, I think Jordan Love going out there. I will say this is me being critical and me being a bit of objective here is, it's ironic to me that the hype and the excitement around Jordan Love over less than a half of football, with the same type of narrative that's been coming out of Soldier Field and the Bears fans, I should say, not even Soldier Field, the Bears fans getting excited about what they're seeing with Justin. So to me, it's just an exciting storyline to see here of the future of the division. If it is Jordan Love, we don't know, but we were talking about 2 weeks ago, right? You gotta kick the tires, right? Like you have to see what you have. at the end of the year, because this might not be an Aaron Rodgers led Green Bay Packer team next year. He may not even be in the NFL next year. So you have to see what you have in live games. And what do you think this weekend? Do you think it's definitely going to be Rodgers coming out there to Soldier Field?
Yeah, I think he definitely starts. But if he gets hit a couple times, I don't know, man. We'll see. We'll see how well he can protect that midsection. We'll see how well he can protect that thumb in the cold weather. I think all of that's going to come in and play a factor, which is one of the reasons why I'm still critical of the guy. Ultimately, I think he failed this team this season with knuckleheaded decision making, and his thumb is part of that. Sure, look. Toughness is absolutely a thing here. He's tough as nails to be able to throw the football at all, much less at a professional level with a broken thumb is like hats off. I got nothing but compliments to say about that. It's the decision making to me that still bothers me, because if you know that you with a broken thumb is maybe not as good as the guy behind you fully healthy, and you're still pushing it, that's irresponsible.
Well,
now, I get it. Every athlete's argument is, the player wants to play. I totally get that. Totally get that. Would not expect a player to pull themselves, and this is where my criticism extends to Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur has no stones, period. Like, dude has no stones. Like, he will not make a tough decision to save his life, and that, I think, is the other half of what has killed this team this season.
Well, Matt LaFleur is in no man's land because of the position, and I would say of the clout of Aaron Rodgers at that position in that organization. Back-to-back MVP. Your hands are almost tied to bench him, right? I mean, we were talking earlier this season before that, 4 or 5 game skid, that this was a contending team, that this was a deep playoff team. Defense, we could talk about that, but this defense is not what we thought it would be. And the point that I want to touch on is with Aaron Rodgers, I think the mentality, what's going on between, the headset is he knows if he comes out, that's probably it, right? Like if he says, hey, I'm going to rest this thumb or rest these ribs, it's almost the end of that chapter. And I think he knows that. I think he knows that if he gives way to this young quarterback that knows the playbook, knows the scheme, knows that offense, has grown up in that offense, it's almost like there's no looking back, right? Like once that transition is made, there's no looking back.
And who knows better than Aaron Rodgers about whether Jordan Love is good or not?
Right.
I mean, he's literally closest to the guy. If Jordan Love is throwing a football, Aaron Rodgers is right next to him. So there's nobody who knows better than Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers is not going to willingly put himself into a quarterback controversy. So, one, he's not going to talk about it, and two, he's certainly not going to take himself out of the game if he can avoid it. We've just seen it play out, like with Tony Romo and Dak Prescott. I mean, the list goes on and on. Bledsoe to Brady. There's all sorts of examples where, the starter went down, the backup came in and didn't let go of the reins.
So bring me into Packers, into the Packers world. Is there a faction of fans that don't want to see Aaron under center anymore?
Oh, it's Civil War, dude.
No.
Packers Twitter. Oh yeah, Civil War for sure. Yeah. There's some real.
There's no loyalty, huh? No, dude, it's a cold world out there.
Well,
it's a business.
And see now, I'm kind of a seasoned vet of a transition like this because I went through this with Brett Favre. When Brett Favre was kind of wrapping up his career, and the Packers trade him, and he goes to the Jets. Well, you got a lot of Packer fans buying, Jets number 4 jerseys, and then some others who started buying purple number 4 jerseys.
Whoa.
And so there's this faction of oh, so you were a Brett Favre fan, and then there's the Packer fans. It's like I will always leave myself on the side of the Packer
Yeah.
fans because that's what's in my blood. I'm a Packer fan. Now, love Aaron Rodgers, love what he's done with his career, love a lot of Packers and what they've done with their career. It's a shame to see some of them play for a rival afterwards, but it is what it is. Ultimately, you've got to decide, and everybody, you're entitled to fan how you fan. We talk about that on this show. If you're an Aaron Rodgers fan, that's
Ain't nothing
fine.
wrong
You
with
might
that.
have to buy a different jersey next
Yeah,
season.
there's nothing
Nothing
wrong with
wrong
being
with
an Aaron
that.
Rodgers fan.
But there is a big difference on Packers Twitter between Aaron Rodgers fans and Packer fans right now.
Yeah.
Um, and I get it. I get it. There's a lot to be respected about Aaron Rodgers. Like there's a lot of respects to
Well,
pay.
that's a great way to put it, Miles. The line in the sand of being a Packers fan versus being a 12 fan, right? And
Right.
I can tell you right now, I mean, if Justin Fields, right, like he has a great career, hypothetically, great career, and gets all the accolades of a great career as a quarterback in the NFL. If he's going to a different team, I'm not getting a different Justin Fields jersey, right? Like in a different no.
No.
So I think the reality is if you're, and this is a neutral stance, right? Even as a rival, neutral stance. If you are an NFL franchise and you have someone of Aaron Rodgers' caliber, you know that it's the sunset, right, of that career, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you, I don't think that you can take an Aaron Rodgers in his sunset and trade away a Jordan Love. Like if it's one or the other, I don't think you can do that after this season. After the 4 or 5 game losing streak, I think at some point, because of what you mentioned at the start, right? This is a business, and what a business of what? It's a business of winning Super Bowls and winning games, and yeah, I think it's exciting, right? Like it's almost one of those like I always dreamed about this day, right? When we'd be having the conversation of 12 riding off into the sunset, and now there's 10, right?
Now it's starting to
Jordan
happen.
Love, and I just think it's one of those where I'm almost kicking myself a little bit because this week it's just not shaping up to be a favorable matchup for fans, right? Whether it's Justin Fields versus Aaron Rodgers or Justin Fields versus Jordan Love, right? Like it's either that end of an era where Aaron Rodgers comes in, plays Justin Fields like we all wanted to at the beginning of the season, or it's uh, potential Justin Fields, Jordan Love, the beginning of an era, right? Of the beginning
Could
of a
be.
new division heavyweight matchup. But we're looking at a
Could be.
potential Tim Boyle versus Aaron Rodgers, or a Tim Boyle versus Jordan Love. I mean, it is bleak as far as
What's going
dude.
on?
It is bleak. So let's not get ahead of ourselves, and let's mention
Yeah,
MetLife
right.
Stadium. Right, MetLife Stadium took out Eddie Jackson on a no contact injury. Um,
Yeah, man.
MetLife, and this was more of a roll up, a high ankle roll up. There was some ligament damage with Darnell Mooney, but still MetLife Stadium, right? Like it's just one of those where it's like it's tough to overlook that track
The
record.
turf
Yeah,
monster.
that turf monster
Yeah,
at
dude.
MetLife, and
Not
um,
good.
Justin Fields was limited in practice today. He's obviously nursing an AC joint in his non-throwing shoulder that was speculated to be a separated shoulder that he had been playing with, which is crazy to think about, right? With everything that he's been doing, and there's been a lot of criticism on Luke Getzey and some of the play calling that even knowing that your quarterback is banged up and you're still calling those quarterback keepers or rollouts and running Justin, but he got banged up. Our backup, Trevor Simeon, he got banged up warming up at MetLife.
That's right.
So
Forgot about that.
we were staring down Nathan Peterman Bowl out there in New York, with Nathan Peterman being the starter, and a game time decision was made. Just put Trevor in there, but they just signed Tim Boyle to the team. So that's looking like Justin may not see the field this week, especially considering that there's a bye week coming up, a late season bye week here, Miles. But it might be Tim
Yeah.
Boyle that's out there this weekend.
Now let's not overlook this headline because Tim Boyle is a former Packer.
Yeah.
Are you
Well,
aware?
I know he's a former UConn quarterback, but yeah, this is all obviously very new. So I wasn't tracking that he was a Packer. Maybe that's why Luke Getsy's bringing him in.
That's exactly why Getsy brought him in. He's a
Golly.
Packer, and he was a fan favorite as the third string behind Jordan Love for a few seasons there. Now, Tim Boyle against Aaron Rodgers would actually be uh, entertaining, I think, as far as
What?
seeing the interactions between the two, because apparently they're pretty good
You might
friends.
be the only one that's
Tim
entertained,
Boyle's got some.
Miles, watching a
Yeah, right.
Tim Boyle versus Aaron Rodgers bowl. To tell you the truth, I don't think that Aaron Rodgers would be amped up to play Tim Boyle. I think I don't know. You think he would?
I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be amped up to play in Chicago, no matter
Yeah.
who's on
Well,
the
I'll tell
field.
you
I don't
this:
think he cares.
if he does come back, right, that front four on the Bears D line, they're not generating any pressure. The Bears' leading sack uh, um, defender right now is Jaquan Brisker, who's a safety, which you never. Yeah, he's
Really?
got 3 sacks on the year.
Oh,
He's
yikes!
leading the team in that stat. And I think if Aaron Rodgers does want to have a field day, this might be the week to do it. He's going to have all the pocket time, all the pocket time in the world.
Are you tipping us off on your prediction already?
Well, I'm pretty.
We're only 22 minutes into
Yeah,
this thing.
well, I mean, let's give the people what they want, right? I mean, we're coming in hot. Um, what I want to happen, Miles, is Justin Fields straps up. So keep in mind that at this point he doesn't have Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney's out. He's out for the year. Eddie Jackson
Yeah.
out for the year.
Hey, quick side
Yeah.
note on that. I think I have some
Oh
responsibility
no.
there. So fantasy football waiver wire surfing.
I knew it.
Morning of, about 30 minutes before games kicked off, I picked up
I
Darnell
knew it.
Mooney. I was like, who cut this guy?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, I'm pick him
Don't
up,
pick him up,
and I got
Miles.
0 points. I killed him.
You
I
killed
killed
him.
him. It was my fault.
Dang. Yeah. So he's out for the year, and
He's out. Yeah.
and that
Good thing you got Chase Claypool,
yeah,
right?
and so that would be the other side of the coin, is at least now, right? Hypothetically, because we don't know if Justin's going to suit up. We don't know if he's even going to be, if he's going to be in street clothes, or if he's going to be ready to roll. But let's just say, for the sake of this point, that he's ready to roll Sunday versus Green Bay. There is that opportunity at that point, without having Darnell Mooney, is the target share for Chase Claypool, who made incredible plays in MetLife versus Sauce Gardner. Um, had a DPI there that wasn't called in the end zone, but we don't need to talk about the refs. this Yeah,
We
we
all
all
get
get
it
it
at
at
this
this
point.
point. Um, I think if anything, that gives you an opportunity there to see the connection you have. And we talked about this point many times on this episode, on this podcast, is that 2023 wide receiver free agency pool is anemic. So, but we also have said on this podcast, is with that Pittsburgh trade, the Bears are in the number 2 spot if we were drafting today. Um,
Number
Number two,
two.
they're in the number 2 spot.
Ooh.
So what I would want to happen, right, is obviously Justin Fields comes in, beats Aaron Rodgers. That's it. That's a career. Call it a career. I think what we might have is Trevor Simeon versus Aaron Rodgers on Sunday, and I don't think it's going to be pretty. I mean, this defense is historically bad. no pressure that's being generated by that front seven on the quarterback, and we all know what that equation equals to when you have Aaron Rodgers behind center, right? And he has all the time in the world let those routes develop. And I don't think that it's going to be competitive if it's not Justin, because we saw, I mean, the Bears were putting up 30 points a game 5 weeks straight with Justin, and then Trevor comes out and they put up
Yeah.
10. And again, a lot of critics on Justin, and he's a running back, and he's this and he's that. Well, he may have been the best player on the field, putting up those 30 points and making this offense look competent, and at times, making them look good. I think we're starting to see what he really has as far as a supporting cast around him. But yeah, it's a tale
Absolutely.
of two possibilities. If he plays, it's competitive. If he doesn't, it's not.
Well, yeah, because let's not overlook what the Eagles just did to the Packers to the tune of 300 plus rushing yards.
363.
Um, yeah. So, nobody's over here calling Jalen Hurts a running back. Um, I think that, yeah, Fields plays. And I got to say, from what we've seen of Fields, he seems like a motivated individual, especially when it comes to this rivalry. So I gotta believe he's motivated to get on the field, and if he can, he will be. But yeah, I mean, don't pass the ball. The Packers just gave up almost 400 yards on the ground in this last game. Just run the ball. You don't have to put it in the
Yeah.
air. Have whoever you need to just hand it off. Get you a Mike Winchell out there and exist between taking the snap and handing Booby the ball. But yeah, it definitely has the setup of a game that gets out of hand, especially with Rodgers playing emotionally. You just never know what could happen. He plays really well down there in Chicago. But my question for you is there anybody on that defense that can even run with Christian Watson?
Oh boy, Christian Watson. He's hot, huh? He's got what, 6 touchdowns in 3 weeks or something like that.
Six touchdowns in 3 games,
Golly.
man.
Boy,
Yeah.
yeah, I tell you what, it's another one of those man, people are gonna start questioning my Bear fandom, but um Christian Watson is just one of those where it's like I like to give credit where credit is due. I'm not big on the hot takes on I know there's a take going out there. I won't even give it any air by saying the dude's name that's calling Justin Herbert a social media quarterback having a social media arm. I think that's pathetic, right? So I like to be more of like give credit where credit's due type. And Christian Watson,
Yeah,
man,
me
like
too.
good for him because he came in. We all know how his career started. I mean, that drop in Minnesota,
Oh yeah.
right? Like
Oh
coming in,
yeah.
shaking that off, and um, probably really putting a lot of time into the playbook. And I'm smiling because Kyler Murray. Let's talk about him later. But he's put a lot of time in that playbook, and I think it's starting to really pay off for him. And so good for him, man. Good for him. I'll tell you about answering your question on who can hang with him. Probably not a lot of people on this defense right now. So you have Kyler Gordon out, Jaquan Brisker out, Eddie Jackson out. It's Jalen Johnson and third string DBs right now. Um, it's not
Ouch.
looking.
This does have the potential to get ugly.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and so
Whew.
mix that. Let's just stay on the same plane here. No pass rush, no pressure generating from the front seven, and no secondary outside of Jalen Johnson. And Jalen Johnson can only do so much, right? I mean, a lot of coverages come into zone coverages. A lot of coverages come into being able to stay on your man for 3 seconds and then needing some help, and it is just not going to be there. So that's what I'm saying. Like it could get ugly.
Well, and we got Romeo Dobbs back at practice, so we might have a full stable of receivers ready to go against that rough secondary. Dang, man, I didn't realize the injuries were that bad. That's
Yeah,
tough.
they're bad. Keep in mind, no Khalil Herbert, right? Kendall Vildor didn't practice today. Up and down that defensive side of the
Man.
ball. Um, it's one of those where
Yikes.
it's one of those where it's like if you were rooting for a tank, which I'm not, right? I would want every game that we can win. Like, let's go out and win it. I think that's a good way to stat confidence for next year and continue to build a culture, right? You want to build a winning culture, but if we're being realistic, the Bears are in the second spot of the draft. If you ask me, Miguel, how do you feel about that? And I tell you, oh, I don't like that, I'd be lying, right? I love it.
Yeah,
I
right.
absolutely love it. Why? Because you can either get a generational blue chip franchise player, right? Will Anderson, or you got Carter out there on the D line of Georgia. You have quarterback hungry teams in Carolina, Detroit. And so that could either
They'll
be
be looking
a
to
blue
move
chip
up.
player or you get King's ransom for that number two spot. Because I don't think that Houston's giving up that number one spot with one win. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's one of those.
So let's have some
Yeah,
fun
let's do
here.
it.
If the Bears are in that number 2 spot and the Packers are trying to come up to number 2, do they do it?
We would want every draft pick that you have for the next decade and that polo and that light up beanie. You throw in the light up beanie and every pick you got.
You're
I
not
mean,
you're not
you're not
getting the
getting that
beanie,
second
man.
pick.
Deals
Yeah,
off.
exactly. We're
Deal
not getting the
breaker.
beanie. You're not
It's
getting the second pick.
erroneous.
There's no way Ryan Poles picks up the phone and hits up Goot, and they're wheeling and dealing for that second pick, and it's not a massive haul. I'm talking about like a Russell Wilson. If you're a Denver fan, go ahead and stop listening now because it would
Stop
be
listening.
that it would be around that level of a trade where you're just decimated with resources for like the next 5-10
Yeah, I don't
years.
think Goot would do that.
No.
But I do. I would honestly predict Poles moving out of the
Oh
second
yeah.
spot. He seems to me like he's in a mode of let's multiply resources where we have the opportunity to do
Yeah.
so.
And so keep in mind, Miles, great point. Keep in mind, before draft day, we all know what happens before the draft. There's a free agency period, right? So like today,
Yeah,
where I'm telling you, hey, it might be that Will Anderson pick, right? Kid from Alabama, generational. I mean, just wrecking ball,
beast.
beast. You got Carter out of Georgia. I mean, SEC, just monster, monster, right? But what if Ryan Poles doesn't want to leave it up to chance, right? In that draft, and he goes out with the number one. Uh, I think they ranked number one as far as cap space going into next year, and he just spends at those positions. And you bring in guys that are okay. You're set, and you can trade back because it's no longer that much of a need, and then you still have the wide receivers in that first round that are probably going to go after five, right? Like I don't see anyone taking one of those guys with a top five pick, but yeah, a lot to
Yeah,
think about.
definitely a lot to think about. I didn't mean to derail us. We got a lot of football to think about before we think about
Well,
draft
how about go
strategies
back
and
to
all that.
your question, right? It's why would Goot, and let's just say hypothetically, we're talking that number two pick. I don't see Goot wanting to move up to number two unless you're taking any of those two quarterbacks, right?
A quarterback, right? Yeah, and that's what I mean. Is that at that point you've traded away Rodgers, you've traded away Love. That'd be the only reason you're going up to get those guys. Which, after seeing what we've seen from Love, I think that's a pretty minuscule chance at this
Yeah. Well,
point.
you're in the
You know,
top 10, what spot?
I think we are right now. I think we're in the top 10.
So are we officially, and I say we, are you officially eliminated from playoff contention, Sarah? Like what's going on?
No, no, and I think that's what's causing the civil war between Packers Twitter, because if we're eliminated, then I think Rodgers sits. And now maybe not against the Bears at Soldier Field. That might be like the last one. He's like, I got to play this game. But after that, once you're eliminated, I think he sits. And I think if you're the coach, like we said, you have to. If you're the GM, you have to. You have to see what Jordan Love is, because you are going to have these quarterback hungry teams calling you about one of your two good quarterbacks. if you're going to get rid of Aaron Rodgers, there's teams that'll be in the market for him. If you're going to get rid of Jordan Love, there will be teams calling about him. Or if you're going to keep Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love wants out, that you need to know what these guys are worth. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But right now, my hopes are on keeping that top 10 pick and getting one Quentin Johnston out of TCU. I want to see that monster up in Green Bay, right next to Christian Watson, right next to Romeo Doubs, getting those bullets from Jordan Love. Ooh, buddy.
Yeah, so he's playing.
Let's make it
this
happen.
Weekend, right? They're playing Kansas State. TCU is that who they're playing in the Big 12
championship?
So, sidebar, right? I know we're wearing Green Bay and Chicago gear. Hopefully, we don't get a cease and desist letter here by the NFL. But let's talk a little bit about the NCAA college football playoff rankings here. We got TCU at 3, USC at 4. So here's my question to you, just for the listeners at home, give them something fun. So TCU and USC is playing this weekend in conference championships, and Alabama and Ohio State, they're not, right?
No.
So if TCU and USC, hypothetically, if they lose those games, they can potentially be leapfrogged by teams that didn't even earn a chance to play in a conference championship and lose those college football playoff ranking spots. What do you think about that?
I think that stinks.
Really?
I think that totally stinks. But I also don't think that either TCU or USC are at risk of losing their championship games. I think that they should both win.
Winning in.
But that's why you play the game.
Yeah.
Stuff happens and you don't win. But that's where I think, as a fan, I think it stinks. We need an expanded playoff, so that you have you don't have this line of teams that, belong in this playoff getting cut out of it. And I think that there's always going to be the bubble, right? Even with March Madness, these teams all the way down, there's how many teams get into the tournament. There's tons of them. And there's still you got the bubble. These teams should be in, these teams shouldn't be in. So I guess there's probably no magical, number, but I would love to see an 8 to 12 team playoff. So you at least have all of your Power 5 conference champions, and you have a few at-large spots then for whether it's an undefeated small school or a 1 or 2 loss contender like TCU or USC. So they don't get left out of that. But at the same time, if I'm a coach right now, you're already in the playoffs. This is a playoff matchup. That's just the way you should look at it. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I obviously have a horse in the race, so I think it's BS. But like you said, I don't think there's anybody out there that's going to feel too bad for either team if they lose and they're out that isn't necessarily a fan of those teams. Obviously, if you're a fan of the sport, I don't know if there's a lot of fans of the playoff structure the way it is today. Obviously, that expansion is going to be something to keep an eye on. But something I'll definitely be watching this weekend, and I'm hoping that what you said is going to ring true, and that both TCU and USC, win their conferences respectively. And Fort Worth, man, I bet you it's just going crazy right now.
It's going to be rocking, man. TCU has this place buzzing. That's for sure. There's all sorts of tailgate plans flying around on Twitter with barbecue joints. Shout out to Heim Barbecue. Love me some Heim. I don't know if you ever got to enjoy that whenever you were here, man, but that's the good stuff. It's buzzing. I will definitely be watching that TCU game. My wife's a Horned Frog, and I still might be one day. Gotta see where that NBA comes from for me.
Heard it here first, folks.
It's definitely a toss up between the Wisconsin and TCU. But yeah, I mean, I've got a soft spot in my heart for the Frogs. A lot of my close friends are Frogs. But yeah, man, and I would love to see USC in it. I would love to see Alabama and Ohio State just, sit this one out. Y'all, you two play each other in the big bowl game that's not part of the playoffs. We'll watch you pick each other apart. It'll be fun. But I want to see this, kind of a fresh slate of teams here in the playoff and see what we get out of it. I'm
Yeah,
excited.
let's just all, I think we agree college football is better when USC is good.
Oh man, yeah, I will admit that. It's kind of like golf being better when Tiger's
Yeah.
good. Not that USC is the greatest like Tiger is, but yeah, man, when USC's good, there's like a, I don't know. It's kind of like when UT's good. I don't even really like UT all that much, but I did used to.
Yeah.
When those big powerful programs are good, it's there's a buzz around it. It's fun to
Yeah, well,
watch.
last time USC was good, UT was good. So maybe UT's got it. Maybe UT's got a shot here. Something to
That's
keep an eye
right,
on
man. That Rose Bowl was
is
a
Arch
classic.
Manning, right? Is
Ooh,
transfer portal,
yeah.
will he decommit? I mean, we don't know. Hopefully he's ready to roll there with UT. But we are not an NCAA podcast. We are
We're
a
not.
OG rivals, Green Bay. But obviously, just I think November is just, and I think this is a treat too here with some of the World Cup matches. USA advances into the knockout round. I mean, November, Miles. I mean, you mentioned it. We took a break there last week, but so many good watches, so many good opportunities
Oh
to
yeah.
just sit down and watch some incredible competition this time of year. I think November is just goated when it comes to sports. College basketball. I mean,
It's
come on.
it's so good. It's so good, man. Yeah, I mean, I think it's. I don't know, man. I guess baseball's pushing it because they're done in October, but um, you have like the most sports going at once.
Yes.
'Cause you got hockey, you got basketball, you got college basketball, you got football, college football. Um, there's all sorts of stuff. And shoot, now this year we got the World Cup happening. Woo,
Yeah.
man, what a sports fan's
It is a
dream.
dream. And I'll tell you, October is usually with obviously this year is an anomaly with the World Cup. It is in Qatar. The weather obviously too hot in the summer to have the World Cup during the traditional time period. So they had to move it to the winter time for cooler temperatures. But like you said, October you get all of the professional sports obviously on at the same time, so you can catch hockey, the World Series, an NBA game, NFL obviously in October is full blast. But yeah, we are in for a treat here, and not far removed
Absolutely.
from watching absolutely no competition during the pandemic.
I'll never forget that feeling, man. Just thirsty for something. That was the one of the saving graces for me was the NFL Pass,
Oh wow,
NFL Game Pass, or whatever it was that the NFL put out there for free. I think they did that for like 6 months. It was totally free, and you could go back and watch. I think it was like every game for the last 10 years. So I was back in, like the early 2000s watching, some classic Packer games and just getting me through.
yeah,
it was
dark
it was
times, dark
perfect.
times. I remember that was
Yeah,
also
man. Dark times.
when the Last Dance, famously referenced by Aaron
Yes, that's
Rodgers and
right.
Devontae Adams during their little go around last season. That came out, that kept me afloat, but it was dark, Miles. I was watching, I think I mentioned this
It
on this
was dark.
podcast. I was watching Big Cat from Barstool and his basement horse races with his like old little board game of horse races that he had, and then also watching his NCAA 14 magical run with Coach Doug's and watching Toledo win a national
Coach
championship. And
Doug's.
that's when I knew that we were deprived of sports. I was watching that, and
We need
we needed
something.
something. But yeah, we have a matchup, and all of that said, to not take this Tim Boyle matchup for granted, people sit down, enjoy the game Sunday. Probably going to be better football if we're calling it. If we're just being real, there's probably gonna be better football watches this weekend than this game if Justin's out. Just with the type of talent that the Bears are going to run out there on the field. But what do you think is going to happen, Miles? Let's chat about this matchup.
It's easy to look at what we got going on paper and basically say what we've already said, which is, the Packers have the weapons to come out and torch the defense. The Bears are missing all sorts of different pieces. So, yeah, it'd be easy, I think, to say, Packers by 90. But we've also seen the Packers come out and play in a way that you just don't expect them to play a lot this season. So I don't know, man. We got to see what Aaron Rodgers looks like. I think that that's going to be the biggest determining factor of what this game looks like. If he's physically capable of coming out and playing, kind of what you said, man. Like, you put a physically capable Aaron Rodgers out there with no pressure and third string DBs.
Watch out.
That could get ugly pretty quick.
Yeah.
But on the same note, you've got a defense that can't stop a nosebleed. So, if you get out there and you guys can run the ball with any sort of effectiveness, you shorten the game a lot like what the Patriots did. They shortened that game and gave themselves a chance with a third string quarterback. So it's, we can't say that, there's no chance that the Bears come out and are competitive with this game. I think there definitely is. And I'm not writing off Justin Fields. He's a determined young dude. I think that if there's any way he can play, he will play. I didn't see his injury. I don't know much about it, but, I'd like to see him play. I'd like to see Justin Fields get out there, because you want to see the defense stop that, right? Like, they just got destroyed by Jalen Hurts. I want them to have another challenge. Like, look, dude, like you have to stop an athletic quarterback if you want to win games in the NFL. Figure it out. You certainly have to stop the run, which they're not doing. So, I think there's a chance that the Bears come out and make it competitive. But I'd be lying to myself if I thought the Packers lost this one. I don't think they lose this one. I think Aaron Rodgers is the owner of Chicago, man. Until otherwise, proven otherwise, you got to go with it. So, are we putting scores out there right now?
Yeah, let's do it. So, I guess for me, and I don't want to take the easy way out, right? But it's just the reality of the situation. I think this is obviously an X factor: is if Justin plays or not. I think my opinion obviously changes. But then again,
sure.
I don't want to be on the fence and take the easy way out. So I will stick to the loyal listeners of this podcast in the preseason, in week 1, in week 2, when the Bears and Packers played. And I said, hey, this is the year when Aaron Rodgers comes to Soldier Field.
This is the one.
JF1 will get his victory. So I'm not going to waver on that. I'm going to give the people what they want. I'm going to stand by that. There was a hot take, even with Nathan Peterman projected to be the starter. I had a hot take on Twitter that the Bears were going to be victorious. And at one point there in the first and second quarter, it looked like they had a shot until the offense stalled out with like 5 punts in a row. But if Justin's suited up, like I said, I think he's going to go ahead and just win this one on just talent alone. And, people might think, well, Miguel's crazy. So keep in mind, what I've been saying consistently is there's going to be games where Justin wins them just off of his talent alone. It's looking more and more unreasonable to have that opinion because of the way the defense is just decimated with injuries. But again, I can't take the easy way out, right? So I know there's receipts out there. I will say this, Miles, and hopefully the listeners at home will give me this generosity here, is if Tim Boyle's suited up and he's marching the offense out there, I mean, just go ahead and send it home, because I don't see that one being competitive. And I'll tell you what, is I won't be super upset, right? Because at that point you're protecting that second overall pick. And like I said, I'm not super mad about that.
So that's like a Packers win with an asterisk, or a Bears win with an asterisk.
Well, I mean, JF1 or Tim Boyle, right? Like, or Nathan Peterman, like it's not even in the same hemisphere.
Hey, hot take. I think Tim Boyle has a better shot at winning a game than Nathan Peterman does.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting to the bottom of the barrel. Like, we're scraping the bottom of the barrel with that take. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like,
Oh man.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, no, I
if
hear you.
we're like assessing it, so like Aaron Rodgers just doesn't practice on Wednesdays, right? Okay.
Right.
So Justin was limited today. Um, he said that he was uncomfortable. So he warmed up. He threw warm ups at MetLife and he needed 3 points of clearance to play, right? The medical staff, the coaching staff, and himself. And apparently he was 0 for 3. And he came out and said, I didn't feel right um, throwing the ball Sunday at MetLife. So he had limited practice today. I mean, that's one where I agree with you, Miles. I think if there's a chance, right, where Justin says, "Okay, I feel good," coaching staff says, "Okay, let's go." Uh, the medical staff, um, which they might, I mean, they might need to look into maybe some other athletic trainers or something because the Bears just seem to always just get completely beat up with injuries and that I know the NFL lots of teams are dealing with injuries but just it seems like the Bears always get snake bitten with some big IR losses for the year. um, but yeah, if he goes, Miles, or I should say if there's a chance that he can go, he's going. So let's hope for that, and if he does, you heard it here first, the Bears are winning on Sunday.
Give me a score.
Well, if Justin plays, um,
Give me a JF1
yeah,
score.
JF1, I think it'd be um, 20. Let's call it um, 23-21. Bears.
Ooh. That defense is holding Aaron Rodgers and Christian Watson to 21
Yeah,
points.
here's the reason why is the Bears are it. I just don't see it being like a shootout because of the Eberflus knowing what happened last year at Soldier Field. And yeah, he's got third stringers out there, but there's a lot of pride on the line,
There's a lot of
top
pride.
down, with this game,
Yeah.
right? And so I think that's worth leaning into here. Is that rivalry, right? Is it's not going to be friendly. They're not going to go out there and just say, "Hey, we're on, we're back up, so we're going to be cool with each other." I think that they know who's wearing the yellow jerseys and the green jerseys, and they know who's wearing the blue jerseys, right? It's like they're going to go out there and they're going to play. Um, and I think Justin keeps them in it, and I think Justin edges gets the edge here. Um, if it's Nathan Peterman or Tim Boyle, I don't see the Bears putting up more than 10 points. And at that point, I think it's irrelevant because I know Aaron Rodgers is going to put up more than 10 points. Um, so that's my prediction for this game.
Well, mine's a little bit on the other side of yours. I've got the Packers winning 38-29. I think it turns into a shootout in the second half. First half starts slow. Eberflus, again, he understands that the best defense against Aaron Rodgers is keeping him on the sideline. So, you got the top run offense in the league. Run the damn ball and hold on to the ball as long as you can. I think he knows that. I think that'll probably be a lot of the plan to shorten the game and keep it low scoring. But in the second half, things get blown open. Um, that's how it goes. And the Packers defense is leaky. I think that you're going to break off a couple of runs. If JF1's in there, I think, you could be looking at a, 38-35 type game one way or another. So we'll see. I'm excited for this one, man. I know both teams aren't good, but this is a matchup that we've talked about it, right? Like this, there's a reason this is the OG rivals, man. Because even when both teams aren't good, you get a good football game, or when one's good and one's not. You always get a good football game out of this. I guess there's always there have been exceptions to that, but for the most part, we get a good game. So I'm excited for this. I love going up against the Bears. I love going down to Soldier Field, the cold weather. Love it. Love all of it. And so I'm pumped for it. I hope we get to watch it down here. I don't know that we will. being a bad game and
Yeah.
all, and it's on at noon. So I don't know. We'll have to see. I might have to find my way over to. Oh wait, shoot! I'm gonna be in Kansas City
Hey,
on
you might get
Sunday,
it up
so I
there.
might get to see it. I might actually
Yeah.
get it.
All
Yeah, we'll
right.
see.
Well, safe
We'll
travel,
see.
sir. I'll tell you what. For those that think I'm crazy calling this game the bear on the favoring the Bears, let's not forget what the worst Chicago Bear team in history did on Brett Favre's jersey retirement night, and went up to Green Bay and spoiled that retirement ceremony. Um, it's one of those where it is one of those toss ups because of the teams that are playing. Right, like it could be the worst Bears team in the
Yeah.
world. It could be the worst Packers team in the world. They're going to come out and play. So
Yep.
that's why I just say keep an eye on it. Um, I'll say this: it all will come down to who jogs from the sideline on the Bears opening possession to lead that team.
Yep.
Because if it's like I said, if it's Justin
Yep.
Fields, it's a different ball game. If it's either of Trevor Siemian, Nathan Peterman, Tim Boyle, shoot, even if it was me, I don't, like rolling out there. I'm a Turkey Bowl legend myself. I don't see it. I don't see it coming to fruition.
Hand the ball off. All you gotta do is just hand that ball off every
Yeah, but
single
I
time.
mean, Green Bay knows that, and
Yeah, they knew it last week and it didn't
yeah,
matter.
that's true. I was on a bye week, so I didn't get to. I wasn't a beneficiary from the Miles Sanders 2 touchdown performance. Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
I
that
will
was
I will
ridiculous.
highlight this though is if Justin Fields does get on a hot streak there in a 2 minute warning, can we just expect Quay Walker to have a cramp?
Ooh, gosh, that's
Too
hurtful.
soon?
Was it Quay
Was it?
Walker? I thought it was somebody else. I don't think it was Quay Walker. I think that was somebody else. I thought it
Oh,
was a different one. But
Alexander, was it?
oh yeah, he did. He got
He
booed
got booed.
hard,
It's
and he flipped the
Philly.
bird
It's
too.
Philly.
Man, that was
It's
funny.
Philly.
He flipped the bird at him
Yeah.
too. The Packers usually don't do that. So
So I mean,
seeing that, I was kind of like, let's not. But I don't know. I mean, sometimes that's a
it
real
is a
thing.
real
You get
thing.
cramps.
If we're calling a spade, right? Like it's until they change that rule, it's
Yeah,
something that is a part of the game.
it is. You just got to deal
Yeah.
with it. I mean, I have a hard time booing somebody who's potentially injured. Like you may think that they're not, but they might be.
Yeah.
It's a
Well,
violent game.
the
You
optics,
know?
Miles. I mean, let's the
Yeah,
optics
yeah,
of,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the timing of it, and if you're running back from the first play and then you just I mean,
You know,
it's a very specific play, right? Like
change the
that's
rules.
what I'm saying. I mean, I'm not going to
Yeah,
knock it.
I
I mean,
mean,
it sucks when it happens to you, but when you are the team that's doing it strategically, for our listeners at home that aren't really following what we're talking about is in the NFL, if you have an injury, it stops the time. So some teams and players, I would say this confidently, have been coached right at a strategic time. If maybe you have 12 guys on the field, or maybe you don't have the right defense out there, and the offense is hurrying up, right? You can have one of your guys go ahead and take a knee, have the training staff come out,
yeah,
and you can essentially, it's clock management is what it is if we're calling a spade a spade.
right,
Um, that's what
right.
we're talking about right now.
Yeah, and I don't like those types of things, but one thing I'll say is Bill Belichick is one of the greatest football coaches in the game of football. He takes advantage of every last little thing that you're allowed to do. He knows obscure rules in the rule book. That was one of the things that made him great. Taking advantage of little things like that is oftentimes what makes these guys
Yeah.
great. And it's not like just that, but it's the little, it's like Aaron Rodgers seeing that a defense has 12 guys on the field and they can't get, that
Free
12th
play.
guy off before he can snap the ball. Yeah, take the free play. There's things like that. I think it's gamesmanship. People will get away with what they can. That's just human nature, I think. And with some limitations. We all have decency and respect. Most of us do. Not
What?
all of us. I shouldn't. Let's not make
Yeah,
blanket
you're being
statements
very
here. There's
generous,
definitely
Miles.
being very generous. There's Raiders fans out there,
Oh,
and
jeez.
Vikings fans too.
Oh, jeez.
Um,
That's funny. Don't hear a lot of Broncos fans these days,
um,
huh? Trouble in Paradise?
they're
They're
gone.
gone.
They're
Yeah.
gone. They rode away.
Hey, well, we're at the hour mark, Miles. But before we wrap up, I did want to revisit one early in the year storyline that you and I really dived into, which was the 4 hour a week study clause in the Kyler Murray contract that you and I were
Yes.
we were circling around that and kind of figuring out the
What's the deal
reason, what's
there?
the
Why would that
deal.
happen?
So apparently, and I mean this is now multiple times where Kyler Murray has clashed with Cliff Kingsbury um, there
Yeah.
in Arizona, and Patrick Peterson, who is a former teammate, comes out and says Kyler Murray's in it for Kyler Murray, or Kyler Murray loves him some Kyler Murray, something like that, right?
He
Paraphrasing. He
doesn't
doesn't
care
care
about
about
anybody but
anybody else.
Kyler
Yeah,
Murray, I
that's
think
what
is
it
what it was.
is.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It was
and
cold
that's
blooded,
cold.
man.
That's a former
It was
teammate.
pretty cold blooded.
Former
Yeah.
teammate. But now there's maybe more to that story of that 4 hour study clause that was taken out of the contract. And I think at this point, Kyler Murray's stock, are you buying or selling? You're selling.
I'm
Yeah.
selling. I'm selling. I I just, we talk about situations, and this one just
Yeah.
stinks. It just stinks. You've got a ton of talent down there on that offensive. I mean, there's they just keep just running receivers through that room. There's like 10 receivers in that room. You've seen Kyler Murray ball out, and when he really plays, he's one of the
On Call
best.
of
He's
Duty, or
freaking
are you talking
good.
about on
um,
PlayStation?
no, I mean, yeah, of
Yeah.
course. He's playing as himself on
Yeah, no
Madden.
kidding.
Um, but you see the talent there, and this is kind of what we talk about. Like a lot of times when we look at teams on paper and we talk about what should happen and what we think will happen, it's based on talent. But man, these are human beings in these roles, and personalities clash. And when personalities clash, talent doesn't show up. Like talent's not a factor when personal things are a factor. So where there's smoke, there's fire,
Yeah.
right? There's some
Dumpster.
smoke coming out of
Yeah.
Arizona.
Well, you know how I feel, Miles. I think there's a cursed image by the Arizona Cardinals social media team that mocked the Chicago Bear, or I should say the Chicago Bean, there in Millennium Park, and so I think we're starting to see the effects of that curse, Miles, there in Arizona, and on
Now is that like so deeply rooted because Chicago was originally the Cardinals?
I think you're onto
Like
something,
is
Miles, and,
that
and so I think that's where the curse. Now you're starting to put some seasoning on that curse. I think it's for real. And like I said, they can break this. So Arizona Cardinal fans, if you're listening to this podcast, go ahead and let your social media team know that all they have to do is apologize for that tweet, and Kyler Murray will put in all the study time that he needs week in and week out. Last 2 cents here is, you throw an interception on the goal line, and then in your post game press conference, you're throwing your coach under the bus for the play call. I think that's Bush
yikes.
League, and I think it's tough to argue with Patrick Peterson there, but I do agree with Kyler. As a man, you can go ahead and pick up the phone and text Kyler. You don't
Yeah.
have to, plug your podcast. But regardless, it gives us content. So I'm not mad about it, Miles. And then also, speaking of quarterbacks, Zach Wilson looks like he's on the outs in New York already. Yeah.
What?
So,
I didn't know
yeah.
that. Holy crap, that blew
Yeah.
up
Healthy
quick.
scratch last week. Um,
he was on top of the world after he beat the Packers.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it just shows you what kind of world the
Oof,
NFL is. That is a 2021 first round
not
quarterback
for
that was
long.
picked before Justin Fields. Looks like his time is over in New
Yeah.
York.
Hey, and I guess we got to stay tuned to that situation because that's just another quarterback hungry team now that's
Lamar
out there.
Jackson.
But while we're on the oh boy, while we're on the topic of these players and their podcasts, shout out to Darius Slay for really throwing Jordan Love a nugget. Did you catch
No, I
that
missed
at
that one.
all? So Darius Slay, Eagles corner, right after playing against the Packers, fresh off that win for him, comes out and basically gives Jordan Love some props. Man, he said he was really slinging it. He said that the Packers' future is
All
bright.
right.
All right. So yeah, a little bit of insight there, and there were some folks on Twitter that said, well, don't get excited about Jordan Love's performance. The Eagles were in prevent defense; they weren't taking him serious. Darius Slay put that to
Yeah.
bed. He said, no, 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 no. When the backup quarterback comes in, when one of the greatest quarterbacks in the game goes to the locker room, you as a defense see that. You start licking your chops. We were ready to come after that man, and he said that Jordan Love got it done. So there's some cool stuff I think to take from these things with players having their own podcasts. You get some I think more authentic insights than what we used to get from these crappy media agencies or networks agencies. Like ESPN. I used to love ESPN, but you're not getting real good stuff from them. I mean, that's why shows like McAfee exist. That's why Barstool exists. That's why these players are able to start their own podcasts and have an audience. If you were getting what you wanted as a fan from ESPN, these other things wouldn't exist. But you're not. You're getting what's approved, right, by corporate. I don't think that's hard for anybody to see or understand. And me as a fan, you as a fan, most fans don't have an appetite for corporate filtered BS. Like, we want the raw, crude version coming straight from the players, straight from the coaches. Like, I want to hear, I want to hear the raw stuff. You know what I mean? I don't want the polished version when it comes to sports. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of a long-winded way to say, shout out to Darius Slay for the comments on Jordan Love, and just podcasts in general. These players like the Kelsey brothers. Have you caught their podcasts?
Yeah, so I've heard about the Kelsey brothers one, but I'm going to look into the Darius Slay comments and podcast. I'm actually pretty interested in that.
Definitely check that out. And then another one, as we're trying to wrap up here, that I'm really a big fan of, and I've mentioned it on this podcast before, is the Kurt Warner podcast.
Yeah.
He's got it where he goes in and breaks down the all 22 film, shows you the concepts, shows you, here's what should happen, here's, what you'd like to happen, here's what did happen. Really, really good stuff from a bright quarterback mind there. So if you guys are looking to dive into some good content around football and you don't want to go to the boring corporate media, there you go. You got some homework.
Yeah. And also, if you like just Homer takes and potential bloopers like Miles's hat just going into flames like a Home Alone scene, tune into our Homer OG Rivals podcast because you're not going to get any corporate takes here. And the main takeaway you should take from listening to us is we are going to give it to you as real as we possibly can and give credit where credit is due. I am a Bears fan, letting you know that Jordan Love looked comfortable out there. He looked in control, and it was, exciting to see there at the end of that big matchup in Philadelphia. And you're not going to hear that much, right? Like, there's so much negativity, so many hot takes. Everybody's out there for
So much
clickbait.
hate.
If we can get some more bright future from Miles and episode 15, it's in the vault, but Miles was heated. Miles was not happy about a bright
I was
future.
not happy.
So that one's in the vault, but now Miles is happy. We got a bright future there. The future is bright for Chicago, whether it's free agency or the draft. But let's have a good let's not overlook a good matchup this weekend.
Heck
And
yeah, man.
before I give my sign off, you want to let us know who's going to be making everybody feel better before game day? I know there's a lot of aches going around with some banged up players.
Well, I just want to make sure that those who think that I have cheese for brains heard you. So, Bears fan just admitted that Jordan Love looks pretty good. So, whoever you are out there on Twitter that thinks I have cheese for brains because I think Jordan Love looks good, just
Who
hear
told
that.
you you have cheese for
hear
brains?
that.
I want to send them a Christmas card.
Well, it might be one of our more loyal listeners. You search through the Twitter mentions, you might
right,
find
I'll
it.
keep an eye out. That's great.
But yeah.
You're a cheesehead, Miles.
So I might have a little bit of cheese in my brain. I guess I can't be a cheesehead if I don't have some cheese for brains. But hopefully it's the sharp cheddar, right? Not the.
Well, it's better than I'd rather be a cheesehead than any other body part.
Yeah. Hey.
Hey, remember
Charlie Delta's here. No, those are only Vikings
I hope we
fans.
Don't get canceled.
Anywho, yeah. No, all kidding aside, because kidding helps you feel better today. We're serious about helping y'all feel better today. We're having fun, and that's what it's all about. So have fun with us, y'all. Check out lifeleafremedies.com. Check out the natural remedies that we have to offer over there on the website, and stay tuned this year for some of the things that we got cooking up for you guys. We have a few new products we're going to be working on, and we're always listening to our customers to hear what they're looking for. So if you need something that's just not being solved by natural remedies, come talk to me. Let's talk about it. I want to know. These things. But ultimately, I want y'all to feel better today. So check us out, lifeleafremedies.com, and feel better today, y'all. And if you want to help us feel better today because you're one of the very few souls still listening to this late into the podcast, sir, what can they do for us?
They already know, and then they should go ahead and make us feel better with spiking that like button, leave us a comment, and subscribe to talk about us at your next tailgate. With that being said, big games this weekend. We're hoping that the USA advances versus the Netherlands. Pulisic there put it all on the line with that goal to get into the knockout round. We're going to be rooting for some frogs and some Trojans this weekend, and we're going to be rooting for the Chicago Bears. Bear down.
Hey, enjoy the good football, enjoy the good sports, y'all. That's what being a fan is all about. That's why we have all this fun. And go, Pack, go.
It's called soccer.